So if you want to be, I should have it on speaker view. So for some reason, I've got it on speaker view, but for some reason it's showing me you, Ali. So that's a bit weird. Let me change that and just pin me. Let me do that. So voila. Okay. Hopefully now I am the main image here for this month's webinar and Q&A session, and this month's theme of the month is rest. So for those who've watched these videos before, you know I take the theme of the month from my Global Sound Circle meditation group, and I apply it to the work that I do with vocal confidence, communication, and of course, sound healing, sonic meditation, and feeling whole and unshakable in yourself. This month, we are looking at, so I've adapted rest to give yourself a break. And how does this impact you when you are speaking up, when you're communicating, when you are trying to put yourself forward, when you're trying to put yourself at the front of people's minds? What elements of give yourself a break are we going to be looking at? I've broken it into 3. The first one is giving yourself a break. Like not beating yourself up about who you're not or what you've not got or what you've not done. Give yourself a break and look at who and what you are. Start embracing who and what you are. Then we have a very practical speaker tip, and that is recognizing, allowing, and creating the use of the pause. So literally creating a break in your communication, useful, really useful in delivering a speech or a presentation, but also really useful in day-to-day communication as well. So a very practical tip on the pause there. And then the third element that we are going to be looking at in Give Yourself a Break is making space to listen to your inner voice. So allowing, and actually interestingly in the meditation group this morning, I don't have my cards next to me. So for those of you who don't know, I have a card deck and I shuffle the cards to give inspiration for the week. And one of the cards that came up this morning was silence. And the other card was singing your own song, like living life from your own song sheet. But in order to know what your song sheet is, for want of a better phrase or word, to know that your direction, your desires, your will, you need to give yourself space so that you can listen to your inner voice rather than all the hundreds of voices that we all have in our heads of other people, our younger selves, society, marketing, advertising, la, 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 gurus saying you must do this, especially if you're self-employed, you know, all those people who say you must, you must, you must. So part 3 is creating space so that you can listen to your inner voice before you start sharing your message. So the way I normally do this is, and Ali is here on her own this evening so far, so she gets a private Q&A session at the end if no one else chips in. But what I love about the Q&A sessions is that the questions I get asked often are questions that several people would love to know the answers to. So I will talk about each topic for a short amount of time, and then I'll give you the opportunity to ask questions on that element of the topic. And then any other questions that you have, please feel free. So, number 1, give yourself a break. Stop beating yourself up. Stop berating yourself. Stop putting yourself down. Stop comparisonitis, which is a word I use a lot. The number of people who are comparing themselves against other people. And those other people may have been doing what you're doing for 10 years. They might have been doing it for 10 days, and you're comparing yourself against them, but you don't have their life background. So the give yourself a break element here, the stop beating yourself up, how does that help you become a better communicator, a better public speaker, more confident in who you are? Mostly because when we are beating ourselves up, and I've beaten myself up in the past, I still do it occasionally now, or what more accurately, I still catch myself starting to, and then I have the structures in place now where I go, oh, wait a minute. Okay, I may not have done X, Y, Z, but what have I done? And this last 6 months is a perfect case in point where changing my data systems and my back end for all of my business, transferring my data, transferring my online courses, transferring loads of tech, was a job that I had set time aside for from the mid-January to mid-March. A family emergency came up and I was the only person supporting that family member. So although come April, May, when I started to think about beating myself up for not having moved all my tech systems yet, I was really able to then go, oh, wait a minute, you were helping that family member who was in a real crisis. So give yourself some space, which we're going to come to in point 3. And that meant that when I was then talking about my business, I didn't have that underlying voice underneath berating me, going, oh, who are you to be talking about this? Because you can't even get those systems in place, or whatever it might have been. So I invite you, Ali, to think of where you might be berating yourself or beating yourself up. And I invite you, anyone who is watching this at whatever point, I mean, today is, the 31st of July, 2023. You might be watching this on the 30th of October, 2033. I don't know. So I invite you to think about the things that you have a tendency to beating yourself up about, berating yourself about, what you're not, the experience you haven't got, what you haven't done. And I just invite you to take a moment to think of, and Ali, I'm not asking you to share specifically. Feel free if you want to at the end, but or if you have a question around it, that's great. But just the acknowledgement of where we regularly beat ourselves up, where we regularly berate ourselves, where we regularly go, oh, well, I haven't done that and I haven't done this. Is there a pattern for you of where you beat yourself up? And now I invite you to allow yourself to take a breath and go, well, actually, I may not have done those things, but I have done ABC, or I've also been dealing with XYZ, so that you are no longer beating yourself up and you can give yourself a break, so that when you are in that communication situation, whatever it is, whether it's raising your hand in a team meeting, whether it is delivering a presentation, whether that is public speaking at a workshop or at a conference, whether it is you speaking about yourself with confidence for an interview, for a promotion, if you run your own business, for talking about yourself and your business with confidence. If you've got those things that you're beating yourself up about at the back of your head, your voice is a reflection of every experience, emotion, thought, or feeling that you have. So if you've got those negative, berating, self-flagellation, oh, I should have punishment thoughts going on in the back of your head, that's going to reflect in your voice, which is why it's so important that we need to recognize them so that we can shift our mindset before we speak and go, actually, okay, but that's me comparing myself against whatever it is you normally compare yourself against. So that might be where you expected your life to be right now, where you wanted your life to be right now. It might be against your parental or guardian expectations. It might be about your social expectations, your friendship group. It might be comparing yourself to a complete stranger who you don't know on social media, and you have no idea what their life story is or their background, and you have no idea whether actually what they're putting out on social media, oh, look at my life, isn't it amazing, is complete bullshit or not. They may be under that going, oh my God, look at my bank account. Oh, I'm £2, dollars, yen, whatever it is, away, euros, away from the end of my overdraft. And yet we compare ourselves so often with the facade that we see and the expectations that we think other people have of us or that we had of ourselves. So when you can give yourself a break, stop comparing, stop berating yourself, and start looking at what you have done. So I have a practical exercise for this. I always like to give a practical exercise for everything. And the practical exercise for this is literally to write down, I like to say 10, but that freaks people out. So I'm going to say 5, but it's 10 really. Qualities that you have and things that you're good at. So you can do 5 of each, right? 5 qualities you have. Qualities are things like kindness, loyalty, passion, purpose, etc., etc., etc. Creativity. Right? So 5 qualities that you have and 5 things that you're good at. Start literally write them down, and you can start looking at the good stuff. You can start giving yourself a break so that you can be in that positive space in that communication situation that you find challenging. So that is the end of that section on giving yourself a break. Ali, do you have any questions that have arisen from that?
Yeah, so my question would be around giving myself a break, having stepped away from paid employment into self-employment.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I don't know what enough is, because there's always something more you can be doing, and I know that's been my downfall in the past. So I wondered what your take was on that particular aspect.
So enough what? You don't know what enough what is?
Having done enough, because I'm still at the point where I don't know how long things will take. I appreciate things will take longer initially, but a concept of what is enough momentum to keep going without going in the peaks and troughs of running really, really fast and then halt.
That is about listening to yourself, listening to your body, listening to your brain. So enough is where you are feeling inspired and motivated, but not running yourself ragged and trying to do everything. Although, you know, I will hold my hands up that, you know, there have been days. And if you're in it, if you're in the passion and the moment and the momentum, then yeah, I'm not going to lie. There are days when I've worked from the 6:30 in the morning till midnight, and suddenly it's like, oh my God, oh, did I actually eat today? Right? But you can't maintain that and stay healthy. So yes, there will be occasional days when that is, but enough is give yourself your boundaries. You know your body, you know your brain, you know your emotional capacity, you know your mental health capacity, you know your physical capacity. And if you don't, start listening to them more, and that will tell you what is enough. The most important thing I would say is those jobs, those tasks, those things that you don't have passion or motivation for, that might be more challenging in the self-employment zone. So for some people, for example, that is accounting and keeping books and marketing, which is a never ending to, like, if you're self-employed, you are a marketer, and we just need to get over that. And so then it's about speaking about yourself and your business, and you think, okay, is that's enough? I've done, you know, one post on social media every other day. I don't want to be annoying people. When it comes to the algorithms, just keep posting. And so then very often with that, we feel like we have to do, I've learned and I am learning and embracing doing more than I feel comfortable with, especially on social media / marketing. It's actually keep repeating the message. Keep repeating the message. You'll know when it's too much, because you'll start losing tons of followers, or people will be unsubscribing in their droves from your newsletter or whatever. But actually, sometimes people unsubscribing, sometimes I deliberately, as you know, Ali, because you've subscribed to my newsletter for a few years now, Normally I send one, maybe two a month, but sometimes, especially when I'm doing a week on LinkedIn, when I'm doing a week of 90-second videos, I will then send an email every day for that week. And I don't do that very often, but I do it deliberately to get those people who actually are not that interested in my work deliberately to unsubscribe. So I deliberately give a little bit more than normal, which might feel like more than enough to clear my list so that I've only got people who are actually really want to be there and really want to hear from me. So what is enough really depends on your boundaries. So that's where you have to set your boundaries and yourself. Is that useful?
Yeah, I think for me, because my brain works at I don't know what miles an hour, that it just wants to keep going, and keep
Yeah.
going. And
And
then,
that's where you really have to listen to your body. You know my story. Part of my breakdown was that I was doing too much. I went completely into overwhelm. So you really need to listen to your body, listen to your energy, and set those boundaries. So if you want to start, I'd start out with going, okay, well, this is a working day. This is when I'd normally work. I will work at my self-employed job like a working day and give yourself a lunch break. So we now move on to point 2, which is the practical pause. So when we are speaking, whether that is especially in a public speaking presentation situation, the power of the pause, some people overuse it. So just be careful. You don't want to be pausing every other sentence. But when you give a pause when you are speaking, you are not only giving yourself a break, you are probably, as if not more importantly, giving your audience a break. So the pause enables your audience to catch up with you. It's really effective, specifically after you've asked a question, even if it's a rhetorical question, because you want your audience to be answering that question in their head. It's also really useful after a very clear statement or instruction, because you need to give your words time to land in the heads and hearts of your audience. And for those who don't know me, when I say audience, that can be anything from one person to 100,000. Right? Your audience, whoever they are, is one person or more listening to you at that time. So when you pause, you're giving them an opportunity to hear what you've said, to digest what you've said, and to form an opinion of whether they agree or disagree with you in that moment. And it's okay for people to disagree with you, because then they'll start questioning. And then hopefully they'll have questions that they'll ask you. And so that gives time and space for you to really add more value. The other power of the pause, as you may have noticed I just did there, to add more value, full stop. That's quite an important point. The pause wasn't specifically longer because of that adding value comment. It was because A, actually I wanted to let that land, and B, I didn't know what I was going to say next. So the other power of the pause is it gives you an opportunity to resettle, to breathe, very important, especially if you have nerves and you're finding yourself suddenly talking faster or talking higher and da 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 da, and you suddenly it's like, right, actually, I just want to get to the end of this, and actually, if I just give myself a break, I can resettle and I can bring my tone, my volume, and my pace back to a better place for my audience. So you give yourself a chance in that pause to reset physiologically, to reset energetically, and to give your own brain a little bit of space, especially if it's not a talk that you've written out. So like this, I have the 3 things that I know I am going to share. I don't sit down and go, right, now what am I going to say? I trust that I know my topic and I've got my markers, and then I will extrapolate on that depending on what the questions are and where it goes. So the pause gives you time to think, and extra bonus points, Because the pause, when you do that, especially if you're searching for a word or a phrase, or you're wanting to find something really specific within you, the pause allows you to do that, and your audience will wait for you, rather than you then putting in filler words like so, well, you see, you know, all of those filler words. And I literally just did it then. I was going, I could feel that coming on, and then I just gave myself a break. Lots of people are worried that with that pause, you might lose your audience. It feels, and it can feel when you're starting out, like that pause is like an hour long and it's really uncomfortable, but it never is. And I invite you just to trust that it's really effective and that your audience will stay with you, unless you're putting in a pause almost every sentence or every few words, and then it's just become stilted. So that's okay. And the odd filler word is fine. Don't beat yourself up about, right? Remember point one, don't give yourself a break. Don't beat yourself up about the odd my favorite one is so. I tend to use it at the beginning of a sentence. And those who know me, my written stuff, it'll often be a beginning of so. And for me, that's an energetic springboard. And it's normally when I've had an enthusiastic idea pop into my head. So don't beat yourself up about, you know, the occasional filler word. You know, I just used 3 in a row, right? But I'm not using them all the time. So there's point number 2. A pause is a really practical way to help you take a breath, stop filler words, let your audience hear what you have to say. Ali, any questions on the pause?
I was going to say so, because I start with so. So I've said it. So I find that when I'm in a speaking environment, I do speak well and I add pauses, but less so when I'm in a relationship environment, which is when I tend to talk really, really quickly and babble and not give anybody else time to speak. So thoughts on that?
Yes, I am guilty of cutting over people socially too, and dominating a conversation. This is part of my extroverted personality, and it is something I have noticed and I work with. So it is really important in a social situation, in relationships, whether that's romantic or familial or friend. Notice when specifically you are cutting across other people. That, I would say, is the most useful thing to notice. And what I've done to do that is I've asked my close friends to let me know when I'm doing it, so that you can start hearing the pattern and you suddenly go, oh God, sorry, you were speaking. And literally you can do that. You can do this in a work atmosphere as well, especially if you know you're a cutter over. Like, so many of my clients come to me saying, I hate it at work. I'm in a meeting and I'm sharing an idea and someone just jumps in over me and it's so rude. And I'm like, oh, yes, I know. And I'm a recovering interrupter, and we don't do it deliberately to hurt your feelings. But actually, that cutting in, especially over other people, is really hurtful to a lot of people, and a lot of people find it really rude, so it puts them off. So notice when you're doing it, and then say, I'm so sorry, I jumped in, you were speaking. What were you saying? That's a really useful, and thank you for bringing that up, Ali. It's a really useful place to put the pause. So, yay. We move on as time flies by in these, and we're to making space to listen to your inner voice. Oh, that really is simply the power of silence, the power of turning off tech, turning your phone off or on silent, not even vibrate, putting it away from you in another room, going out in nature, breathing, really allowing yourself to slow down so that you can figure out your path, listening to your inner voice of what you would really desire, what you know is right and true for you, This is tuning in to your intuitive self. And every single human being has intuition. Every single human being is a little bit psychic. Every human being knows when we listen to our signals, what is right and wrong for us. And when it comes to making choices, yes, of course, sometimes, especially if you don't have knowledge in an area, ask for opinions or advice from people who have knowledge in that area. I have two friends who work in marketing, and I am going to be mining their brains for information once I've got this new system set up, because I know the route I want to take and what I want to create. I don't know how to do it. And that's the listening to your inner voice that I'm talking about. I know the right path for what I want to do. So I won't allow myself to get pushed off that, because I've listened to my intuition and I've gone, is this right? Yes. Okay. Then I will persevere. Actually, much like changing all this tech. There were times in the last 6 months when I've gone, oh, why am I doing this? Why? It's like, stop. Because when you were in the space and you asked yourself, is this true for me to move everything to here? You got a really strong yes. So is it annoying and frustrating right now? Yes. But is it still true? And you can always recheck in with yourself. But we need silence. We need stillness. We need space. By space, I need energetic space. I mean emotional space. I mean time. And very often a different physical space to your whatever situation it is you're trying to get guidance on. So if it's a family situation or a friendship situation or a work situation, you don't want to be in that family, friendship, or work environment when you are trying to just listen to your inner voice. Go out, make space, give yourself time, slow things down so that you can really feel into all the signals that your subconscious brain, your awareness that your body is giving you as to whether something or someone or an opportunity, whatever it might be, is right for you or not. This sometimes includes, and I have a client who did a really brave thing last week. They were meant to be speaking at a big conference in America, and what they speak about is putting people first in organizations. And they realized that they were on the edge of burnout. So they cancelled this huge talk, this really massive opportunity. And they said, no, they listened to themselves, were like, no, this isn't nerves, it's not any of that. And this is where we need to be careful with listening to our inner voice, or this is where our inner voice is really good, because it was like, okay, is this ego? Is this nerves? Is this anything else? Or is it just, actually, this is not true. I need to take care of me. So when we listen to our inner voice and make time and space for that and give ourselves a break, we can really make the most powerful decisions, and then we can choose where our words come from. So that's how it helps us with communication, because we know we're coming from a place that is rooted in our deepest truth, connected to our higher purpose, runs through us like a stick of rock, as my coach would say. And for anyone in any country that's not the UK, and you're like, what's a stick of rock? It's like a sugar candy cane. It's normally about sort of that big, and it always normally has the town's name that runs all the way through it in sugar, but sometimes it might have I love you running all the way through it, or any other word or a picture. So if it runs through you like a stick of rock, you know it's true when you've made space to listen to your inner voice. And then when you are communicating from that place, other people's opinions don't matter. So the tool and tip that I share for that is get out of your normal environment, turn off your tech, make time for it. And this is why people make time every day, whether it's 5 minutes or half an hour, for breathing, for meditation, for I go barefoot on my lawn every morning. This is the time for me to make space so I can listen to my inner voice and trust the decisions I'm making for my business, for my communication, for that day. You can do it in a micro session if you're getting frustrated and stressed, for example, and you're just like, you can just go, breathe, step back, maybe step out of the room if you're with people, or just close your eyes. If you can't physically step out of the room, just close your eyes and breathe. Give yourself a little space and ask yourself a question, which is, am I coming from truth? Or am I reacting? That simple question will very often help you come to a more centered space for communication. So that is my tip for making space to listen to your inner voice. Ali, any questions on that?
Yeah, I find myself saying yes to lots of things because I'm interested in lots of things, lots of projects. I might start them all off, but when I get to the space of finishing, I kind of don't like. I like the finishing, but I don't like the space after the finishing. So I'm just wondering if you've got any tips for somebody who just runs from one thing to the next to the next.
So how often do you find yourself overwhelmed by saying yes to everything?
Now that I'm more discerning, not as much.
I know. So for those who don't know, Ali and I have been working together in various ways, shapes, and forms for a couple of years, and she's come on leaps and bounds. It's amazing. So that's gorgeous. So not so much. So there's two parts to this. The first, before you say the yes, as I know you do now so much more than you ever used to, but you are saying not as much, so that means there's still a little bit. Just keep asking yourself that question. Do I have the capacity for this? Right, brilliant question. Do I have the capacity? And by capacity, I mean the time capacity, I mean the energetic capacity, and I mean the emotional capacity. And if it's going to be something that's taking up a lot of brain power, the mental capacity. So before you say yes, ask yourself, do I have the capacity for this? For the empty life syndrome, that thing's finished. Oh, I have to go to something else because otherwise I have to spend time with me and I'm not sure I want to spend time with me. Or I have to spend time with other people. I'm not sure I want to spend time with other people. No, let me run away. So in that, when it's finished, again, I would just allow yourself to ask yourself, what time or space do I need? So it's comparing this, it's using both, because obviously what you'll be doing is looking to say yes and jump on to the next thing. So be really aware of, before you say yes, to do I have the capacity? And obviously, and that, is this true? Right? Is this true? What do I get from this? And that what you get from it might be about who you be. It might be about an energetic thing. It might be what you're giving to others. Like what you're getting is a sense of reward because I'm giving this to someone else. And allowing yourself to make space. And I know what it's like. My mum, I'll never forget when I came home from university, where I did drama and theatre arts, for those who don't know. I'd been home a little while, and my mum turned around to me. I think I'd been home about 3 weeks, and she turned around to me one day. She went, "For God's sake, get a copy of The Stage and get yourself in a play because you're a nightmare." So there is a time when some of us do need to be occupied in a way. And then, you know, when a play ends, there's always, every actor talks about the post-show slump, because your life is all around this one thing, and then suddenly these people aren't there and you're not on stage and you're not creating, and and yes, sometimes if you're lucky, you go straight into something else. But sometimes you make a bad choice and you jump straight into something else just because, oh yeah, it's another acting job, or it's whatever it is, you know, it's another contract for those of you who are contractors or consultants. Oh, I'm just going to jump into it. I've got a friend at the moment who has just left one job and I can see them. They're just jumping into applying, and I get the money concern. It's like, is this the right next job? How does this serve me? Is a beautiful question. There you go. So sometimes I have to talk around a topic before I can get to the real point. So in that empty space, after you finish something and you get another option coming up, how does this serve me? Or does this serve me? Or am I just filling space? And in the allowing yourself to be with yourself, that's about the getting comfortable with allowing time and space to be with you. And that is a whole other topic that we could go really deep into. Allowing ourselves to be comfortable with time and space with us. And that's all about the feeling whole and unshakable, accepting ourselves. And we go back to point one about looking at who we are and what we do have, not what we're not and what we don't. Oh, how beautifully that all comes around together. So yes, so hopefully that was useful. Ali, any other questions? We have about 4 minutes left of this evening's session. Is there anything else you wanted to explore?
I just had a download then, which was basically, so in the space, I had this concept of that's wasting time because I'm not being productive, when actually I could just be doing fun things that I enjoy doing just for doing. But realizing that, oh, okay, that's interesting. This concept of wasting time instead of giving yourself time, allowing yourself time.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And time isn't there to, we don't have to fill it up all the time. Like time will fill itself up. Like nature abhors a vacuum. But actually just allowing yourself to sit and breathe and read a book is sometimes as valuable as running around doing things, being helpful, doing another project, etc., etc., etc. Because actually in that time of allowing ourselves to be, that's where we make space and the real voice comes through and we go, oh, this is what I want to do. So yeah, it's not wasting time. The space is building time and space. I did it yesterday and it was pouring with rain in the afternoon. And I allowed myself to just sit on the sofa and watch a bit of telly. And then in that space, I looked around and went, actually, I want to tidy up the flat. So there were some cobwebs I'd noticed in the kitchen about 3 weeks ago. I thought, oh, actually, yeah, I can go and vacuum those cobwebs. Because when I'm running around, I don't make the space or the time for those little things that to some people are vitally important. To me, I'm like, everything's clean, so it doesn't matter what the cobwebs in the corner, they're not hurting anyone. But it was really lovely in that time because I hadn't planned things, I hadn't filled my day. It gave me the time to do the things that actually now, when I look around my flat, I'm like, oh, feels really lovely. I even did some ironing as well. So that washing basket is now away, and that's so. But if I'd have filled my day, I wouldn't have had the time to do that. And if I'd put that in a schedule, I'd have begrudged it. So sometimes allowing space gives you the opportunity to do the things that could have been on a to-do list and you'd have done them, but maybe with a little bit of resentful shoulding. And this time you choose to do it, and it's a whole other energy. So there we go. Useful, Ali? Lovely.
Absolutely. Thank you.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. For those of you who've been watching this on a recording, thank you. Please feel free to get in touch. If you like what I say, follow me on socials. I'm at Your Whole Voice on Instagram and Facebook. I'm Judith Quinn at Vocal Confidence on LinkedIn. I have workshops. I have online courses. I work with people one-to-one. Check out my website, yourwholevoice.com. I run retreats and all sorts. You will find it all there under my events page. And come and join us in September when the theme of the month is going to be, I do know this. I'm just going to go and look it up though. Harvest. Yes. So are you harvesting your opportunities? Are you harvesting your rewards and your life? So what are you going to harvest when you communicate? Okay, take care. Have a lovely evening, and I'll see you soon. Thanks, Ali. Bye.